This is PrepTest 141, Section 1, Passage 2, about Victorian photographer Julia Margaret Cameron and her staged costume photos. This one is medium difficulty, and the challenge here is that the author's whole argument runs in reverse, and failure is the point. This is a humanities passage, and it's doing one thing, arguing that Cameron's photos are great because they failed at what she intended, not in spite of it, but because of it. And you've got to get that locked in before you touch a single question. Now, paragraph 1 is a setup disguised as a takedown. Read it at a pretty normal speed, but stay alert at the end, because the author opens by describing Cameron's costume photos, which are staged scenes from the Bible and Shakespeare and mythology. Then the passage immediately starts listing everything that went wrong. There were kids who moved and blurred the shot, babies staring into the camera with what the author calls frank hatred. So the whole vibe here is closer to a bad family reunion photo than a Raphael painting. And now you're going to feel like the author is mocking these photos, but that instinct is wrong. Watch the turn at the end of the paragraph. The author says those messy human moments are what give the photos their life. And then comes the gut punch. If Cameron had actually pulled off the polished art she was going for, her work would be forgotten. The author compares that imaginary success to another photographer's piece and calls it extravagantly awful. And so paragraph 1 isn't tearing Cameron down, it is building a paradox, intended failure as accidental greatness. Now, paragraph 2 is the engine of the passage. You want to slow way down here. That's where the argument lives. The author explains why the mess works, and the answer is the camera itself. A camera is too literal. It can't lie the way a painting can. So no matter how elaborate Cameron's costumes were, the camera kept recording what was actually in front of it. Real housemaids, real village kids, real husbands, all stuffed into costumes, all just trying not to move. The author says that struggle, people enduring the sitting, becomes the real story of each photo. And then the author makes a bigger claim. You could look at a painting of a biblical scene and forget it's all made up. But with a photograph, you can never stop seeing the real person underneath the costume. The author uses the word doubleness here, meaning you always see two layers at once, the fictional character and the actual human being. And that word matters. It's the concept that holds paragraph 2 together. So you can expect the questions to cover it. Then paragraph 3 does something a bit sneaky. You don't want to speed through this one here. The author zooms in on one photo, the passing of Arthur, with broomstick masts, muslin fabric, pretending to be water. Everything looks homemade. But the author says it does not matter, because for this one photo, the fantasy actually wins. The romantic vision takes over despite all the amateur props. Now, this might feel like it contradicts paragraphs 1 and 2, but it doesn't. The author spent 2 paragraphs saying the realness overpowers the fiction. Here, the author is saying sometimes the art and the amateurism fuse into something that works on both levels. So it's not a reversal, it is the final version of the argument. Cameron's best work happens when the homemade quality and the artistic vision stop fighting each other. Now, here is the key move. The author builds a theory of photography around Cameron's accidents. Cameras can't fake it. That limitation wrecked Cameron's artistic ambitions, but the wreckage turned out to be worth more than the original plan. And so every hard question on this passage will test whether you understand that chain. Now, the author clearly admires Cameron, but there's a trap. Most students will code the author's attitude as something like appreciates the charm or finds the flaws endearing, but that's too soft. The author isn't just charmed, the author is making a specific argument about what photography does that painting and theater can't do. The admiration is built on that argument, not on warm feelings about cute imperfections. So if you flatten into thinking that the author likes the quirky photos, you're going to get the wrong answer on a main point or attitude question. Now, before you get to the questions, check yourself on 3 things. First, what does the author think would have happened if Cameron had actually made technically perfect staged photographs? Second, why does paragraph 2 bring up painting and theater? What point is the comparison making? And third, how does the author's treatment of the passing of Arthur in paragraph 3 differ from how the rest of the photos are described?